Senator Barfoot.
Here.
Senator Carnley.
Here.
Senator Coleman. Senator Elliott. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey.
Here.
Senator Jones.
Here.
Senator Kitchens.
Here.
Senator Livingston.
Here.
Senator Price.
Here.
Senator Roberts. Senator Singleton.
Here.
Senator Smitherman. Senator Wagner.
Here.
Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Shellnut.
Here. All right, we have 13 members present. We have quorum. First bill on the calendar is HB 477 by Representative Faulkner. It's always good to make Representative Faulkner wait a little bit. Mr. Faulkner, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad you can make it.
Mr. Chairman, before we start, just house rules, we're just having a public hearing, there will be no vote.
Yes, sir. That is the plan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The plan could change?
Thank you for letting my members know that.
Okay.
No, it's not going to change
Okay,
today.
thank you. And when you said the plan, I know plan
The
saying.
plan can always change, but no plan's for it to change. All right, Representative Faulkner, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
We're dying to hear you.
Thank you. Senators and the Honorable Chabo Wagner, it is a pleasure to be before you today, and with along with Senator Orr, who I know is detained and can't be here. I'm going to get the opportunity to speak to you about a bill that I have been working on tirelessly for about 3 months, and really started working on it about 6 months ago. All of us know the importance of agriculture and forestry to the state of Alabama. It's our largest economic forces, one of our largest economic forces. It directly supports 275,000 jobs, and it pays $15 billion in wages and contributes almost $80 billion to local and state economies. The number of Alabama farms decreased by 8% from 2017 to 2022. 95% of Alabama's 37,000 farms are family owned. The Alabama Farmers Federation is seeking authority to offer its members a health plan with coverage similar to successful programs already enacted in 10 other states and being considered right now by 5 states, including Alabama. These Alpha Health Plans have the potential to save farmers and other self-employed families 30 to 60% on the cost of their health care coverage. These plans are needed because farmers and other small business owners often fall into a coverage gap. They earn too much to qualify for federal subsidies, but not enough to pay the full cost of health coverage. It's not uncommon for a farm family to pay $2,000 to $2,500 a month for health care coverage, often twice their home mortgage. These farm families that you see behind me in this room, for many of your districts, and dozens more, are struggling with this very issue. We have the opportunity to help the farmers and small business owners who are the heart of communities in our districts by allowing the Federation to develop an Alpha Health Plan for its members. The Farmers Federation is not looking to change Alabama's healthcare market, and they will not. These plans are not for everyone, but they could mean economic survival for some of our farmers. We have worked on this legislation, the Federation has, for over a year. I've been with them for at least the last 6 to 7 months, along with Senator Orr. They've listened to questions and they've accepted a host of changes. When I say we've listened, I have met many, many times with Blue Cross, with the Business Council of Alabama, and the Hospital Association, among some. And I want to thank Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I want to thank Business Council of Alabama, and I want to thank the Hospital Association for raising their concerns and working with us as we adopted many amendments to address their concerns. In fact, members, senators, HB 477 is by far, the most comprehensive Farm Bureau legislation in the country. You can look at all 10 states that have enacted this and the states that are even trying to do it now like we are. Our bill is far more comprehensive, includes far more regulations. It offers the best consumer protection, the strongest coverage guarantees, the most oversight, and the greatest financial contribution to state budgets. 10 other states, as I said, have approved these plans with far less specific legislation. Even without the changes we've made to this bill, active plans have saved farmers 30 to 60% on health coverage. These plans have experienced a 98% retention rate. Tennessee's been doing this since 1947 with a 98% retention rate. If it wasn't good and it wasn't working, people wouldn't be staying with the plan. It's a tried and proven option. It's not for everyone, but it's a tried and proven option for our Farmers Federation to be able to offer this to their members. We've made a total of 18 substantive changes to HB 477. We have addressed every concern we can without undermining the affordability of these plans. My colleagues in the House, there were 98 yes votes for this bill out of 103 current House members. The one no vote was a mistake, and the representative came up and told the clerk and told me that she failed to hit the button to be able to change it, hit the wrong button. 98 yes votes and technically 0 no votes out of 103 House members. The House of Representatives also soundly rejected and took out an amendment to require the Alabama Department of Insurance to have enforcement by a vote of 74 to 15. I ask you to resist any further changes to this legislation, but I want every senator to know that I would welcome the opportunity to speak to you in detail outside of this public hearing to address any concern you have. I've done that with House members, and I'm happy to do it with any of you. The changes to the bill, let me go over the changes to the bill that we have made. We have required Alpha Health Plans to have independent reinsurance from a company separate from them. We have required the submission of an annual actuarial opinion to the Alabama Department of Insurance to make sure the plan has the reserves to cover the claims. We have required the Alpha Health Plan to have a customer complaint procedure materially similar to the Alabama Department of Insurance customer complaint procedure. We have authorized the Alabama Department of Insurance to comment and review complaints received by members. We have required the appointment of an ombudsman to establish a line of communication between the nonprofit agricultural organization and the Department of Insurance. We have levied a 1.3% privilege tax on this plan, on these plans. Only 2 other states, I believe, have that out of the 10 who have it in place. We have required Alpha Health Plans to cover certain benefits there were only 2 states out of the 10 that had benefits listed. Our list is not only those, but 2 more that we added. And we're the only state that has that many listed. We have prohibits binding coverage for anyone with an option to participate in an employer-sponsored health plan. That was with the Business Council of Alabama. We have required compliance with the Alabama prompt pay law. We have required compliance with the provisions of the Federal No Surprises Act. We have required all covered services to be provided by in-network providers whenever possible. And in addition to those 3 I just mentioned, we reached a 4th at the request of the Hospital Association. Even though this plan has no annual limits, has no annual or lifetime limits, let me be clear about that, it does not. But the Hospital Association said if ever down the road, we'd like you to put in that the cap, a minimum, that if you ever do have an annual limit, it'll be a minimum amount on that. And we put that in. All 4 of the hospital's 4 major concerns were addressed. We had prohibited insurance brokerage agencies and other commercial health insurers from selling Alpha Health plans. That's limiting third-party brokers from selling these plans. We also added on that same line that it has to be licensed. The only people that are going to sell this Alpha Health plan are agents licensed by the Alabama Department of Insurance. We've made that clear. We had guaranteed renewability provision. The one other state is considering it now along with us, but of the 10, none of them have this. The members shall not be canceled or non-renewed based on a medical condition. An individual health condition. We added mental health and prescription drugs as a benefit into the law. It was already covered, but we put it into the law. And we changed the tax collection agency from the Department of Revenue to the Alabama Department of Insurance. And we've set the rate for emergency services provided by out-of-network providers. Senators, thank you for indulging me to let me go a little bit long to go through those changes with you. I would welcome the opportunity to speak with you. I can put this bill up against any bill that's been passed in the country, and you will see that we're the only state that has most of these. It's not even close. There's no state even close to what we've done through this bill. But I know that I want you to hear from the great folks that are here to speak in support of the bill. And with that, I'll be happy to come back up, Mr. Chairman.
I got a question for you, Representative Faulkner. I'm sure there might be a couple others before you head off. Is there any taxpayer money that goes from the state or from the federal government to offset the cost of the premium of these plans?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, this is a self-funded plan. This is a plan for the Federation members, regulated by Federation members, and they have members and offices in all 67 Alabama counties. It's a plan that they're funding without one dime. There's no subsidies. It's all their money. It's all their risk to offer a health plan to their own people. And 10 other states have done it, and I think Alabama needs to follow suit.
Thank you, Representative Faulkner. Senator Williams, had a question.
Yes, sir.
First, I want to thank you for working on this so hard, because I know it's been a lot of hard work. I just want to know if it's true that Blue Cross Blue Shield is the administrator of these Farm Bureau plans in 3 other states.
Yes, Senator Williams, that's my understanding. That is what I know is that Tennessee Farm Bureau does 7 out of the 10 that are in place now. And Blue Cross Blue Shield is 3 of the 10.
Thank you, Representative Faulkner. Senator Barfoot, I saw your hand raised.
We've had this discussion, I know you poured a lot of time, energy, and effort into it, and from everything that I've seen and read and heard, I think you've done a great job of trying to accomplish the goal that you set out to, and work with a lot of other folks, so congratulations on that.
Right, Senator Barr.
You brought up some very good points today. I want to make sure, though, that I understand, if you're the only way that you'll have an opportunity to buy this or purchase this plan is if you're a Federation member. But if you're a Federation member, it doesn't mean that you have to purchase that plan.
Absolutely correct, Senator Barfoot. It is an option. There's no mandatory compulsion that a Federation member apply for this plan. It is simply being offered as an option by the Federation for its members as a health care plan.
I should probably go a little bit deeper. If you're a Federation member and want to purchase this plan, but if you have health care through your employer already, then you wouldn't be eligible for it. Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Senator Jones, did you have a question or were you pointing?
I did.
Oh, okay. Senator Jones.
First of all, Representative, thank you for your work on this. I've got to say that you have by and large addressed almost every concern virtually that I've had with the legislation. I do have one question I want you to walk me through if you can.
Sure.
So let's say I have a consumer complaint or an issue, and I go, there's a person in here that deals with that, but then the Department of Insurance can review and comment on that. What happens after that?
Well, pretty much what would happen with any company. I mean, right now, Alpha Property and Casualty is actually a license. It's insurance, so it's licensed by the department. Same with health insurance companies. They're licensed by the department. Alpha Health is a self-funded plan, so it is not regulated by the Department of Insurance. It's not an insurance company. It is a self-funded plan for its members. So the State Department of Insurance does not regulate this plan, would not regulate this plan. But the complaint procedure that you specifically asked about would be the same. So for any other company that offers health or some type of insurance, you would pursue your complaint through the company. You would follow that process. And then if you wanted to, just like with anyone else under this plan, you could make a complaint to the Department of Insurance. They would set up the same timing. Their team would review it. And then they would make comments and they would say, now, they're limited to what they're looking at. I mean, they're looking at the contract. Because what governs these self-funded plans is that contract. I mean, it's the contract that the policyholder has with the company. And so that process would be the same. And then the Department of Insurance could weigh in and say to the policyholder and to Alpha Health, they could say it to the Federation member who has the plan, and they could say to the Federation, this is what we think as far as looking at the policy, and they would make their comments. But from there, it would not be, I mean, if the person continues to have a complaint, I guess they could take it further.
So tell me what that means. So the way I read it is that feedback from insurance is more of an advisory opinion. There's really no teeth in that. So if I take it further, I guess you mean a private right of action, or I'm just trying to figure out, it seems like this is advice coming from Department of Insurance, but I guess it's up to Alphas whether they take that or not. Am I right on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, or the policyholder could, the Farmers Federation member could say whether or not they agree. But that would be the same, in any type of complaint with a company. If you're talking about the ability, because, this is not a company licensed by the department, I mean, technically, the company has powers to take away a license of the company that they regulate. They have the authority to levy fines. But in the normal complaint procedure, that's not usually imposed on a complaint. And I want to say, reflecting back to Tennessee, that I think I want to say they have so few complaints. It was, where am I been? I'm trying to think of that number. 1 out of 250 complaints out of 2.5 million claims, for example, in Tennessee. No other state has imposed as much regulation and oversight from the Department of Insurance as we have in this plan. No other state, not even close. And I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between, yes, this is not going to be a insurance company licensed by the department, but I feel like the policyholders, the people who have these plans within the Federation are heavily protected. And I feel like we've done a really good job of putting in the oversight, if you will, even though they're not a licensed company by the Department of Insurance.
Last follow-up, and I will yield to somebody else. Tell me what you meant when you said they could take it further. Does that mean there's a private right of action, or what?
Whatever their contract. So they've got a contract. Okay, so whatever that contract provides for, if you whatever is in that provisions, but they have the same complaint procedure with our department to put another set of eyes, if you will, on this. Even though it's a self-funded plan, and the department does not regulate self-funded plans.
Thank you, Representative Faulkner. Representative Faulkner, you don't have to be anywhere, do you? You gonna hang out for a little bit?
Yes, sir.
I think we might have some more questions for you, but before we take any more questions, I want to start the public hearing. Members, I just ask that y'all hold your questions because I want to hear the speaker.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
may I be recognized
yes, sir.
to speak to you?
Sure.
I respect highly you changing in the middle of the screen to go through that, and you have members that want to speak. But what you're telling us is that we're held hostage here until it's over with all these people talking. And if you look at our committee schedule, every 30 minutes we're supposed to be in a different committee. I mean, 8:30, judiciary, 9 o'clock where I just left you. We got this one, we got another one. Here's the schedule. So in all due respect, I would hope that we are not allowed not to address it until at the very end, because we may not have an opportunity to do that because of our responsibilities against the other committee meetings as well.
Well, I know Representative Faulkner will be glad to meet with y'all personally.
No, I don't want to meet personally. I'm talking about in this committee. I mean, if we're in a committee here, it's not a personal thing. My question is not personal about Roger Smithman. It's about 150,000 people that I represent.
Right.
So I don't, it's not about that. It's not about he and I, I'm back with each other. If we're gonna have a public hearing, then those concerns, public concerns, that are addressed at the public hearing.
And every member will have plenty of time at the end of the meeting to ask any questions they want.
That's not for you.
Unfortunately, we gotta move on because we've got senators that have to be places, we've got speakers that have to be places, so I'm just asking for a little, just let us start the public hearing, Senator, please.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So at this time, I'm gonna call the first speaker.
Are we voting on this today? That's all I
No,
wanted to
ma'am,
know.
no, ma'am,
Okay.
we're not voting on this today. So I wanna make sure all the members have plenty of time to digest, ask any questions they want to. So first speaker.
Proponent Christy Nelson.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Christy Nelson. I farm in Jefferson County with my husband Evan and 3 sons, Cash, age 13, Crew, age 8, and Briggs, age 5. Last year, Evan testified about why our family needs Alpha Health Plans. A year later, I'm here to say our need for affordable health care is an even more pressing issue for our family farm. I ask you to stand with Alabama farm families like mine and approve Alpha Health Plans legislation without further delays or amendments. We began our farming journey in 2020. We specialize in hay and cattle. We enjoy life on the farm and see our occupation as a calling to provide for our fellow citizens. As first-generation farmers, our startup costs were significant. In order to make our dreams a reality, this required taking on an extreme amount of debt in early years. While we recognize this choice was solely ours, we feel our calling is greater than the sacrifice. The family farm is dying each and every day, and we want to be a part of the solution. While we love what we do for a living, there is no greater joy than to be parents to our boys. Our number one goal is to provide for our children and keep them safe. Evan tells me that I'm always worried about something, but as a mom, that's my job. Having a hardworking husband and 3 boys means the unexpected can be behind every corner. Whether it's farming, sports, or just being rough and tumble, accidents are inevitable. We've seen stitches, seizures, surgeries. Quality health care is a must for our family. Affordable health care is a must for our family. Currently, our best option for health care is through the health insurance marketplace. Each year, our premiums are based on our projected income. We receive subsidies if our income is low enough to qualify. As any small business owner will tell you, the goal in business is to make a profit. However, as our business grows, the subsidies decrease, making our out-of-pocket costs skyrocket. The higher the premiums negate our potential profit. Farming is extremely unpredictable. Projecting income for our business is comparable to predicting the weather. One year might be great, the next may be terrible. Unfortunately, if we underestimate our income, we're forced to pay back the subsidies. At the end of the year, we may be billed as much as $12,000. We are penalized for growing our business. Rather than supporting farmers and small businesses, the current system discourages investment, job creation, and success. With the option of an Alpha Health Plan, we could rest easy knowing that our insurance premiums would be stable. We could budget accordingly. We would have peace of mind knowing that we can afford great health care while continuing to grow our business. And Miss Mama can cross one less worry off of her list. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Madam Clerk will call the first opponent.
Senate District 19.
Ashley Lyerly.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to share some comments on House Bill 477. My name is Ashley Lyerly, and I'm Senior Director of Advocacy for the American Lung Association. And unfortunately, we are opposed to the bill in its current form. The Lung Association believes everyone should have access to quality and affordable health care coverage. However, expanding access to plans offered in this proposed legislation through the Alabama Farmers Federation would not provide consumers with adequate coverage that they need to stay healthy and would be particularly harmful for patients with lung disease, asthma, and COPD, as well as lung cancer. While plans sold through the insurance marketplace or other employer-based coverage are required to cover all 10 essential health benefits, these proposed plans will lack these requirements for robust and comprehensive coverage. While I acknowledge that this plan does cover 6 types of benefits, what it doesn't cover is the coverage of maternity and newborn care, pediatric services, preventative and wellness services, including chronic disease management, as well as rehabilitative services. In the House public hearing a couple weeks ago and even in today, we heard from a mother who was advocating for health coverage for her family so that she would remain on the farm. You might ask, what coverage will children have access to in this plan? Well, as is written today, health coverage for her children would not be guaranteed since pediatric services are not mentioned. What if this child has asthma? Will they have access to any preventative services or chronic disease management services through a pediatrician? If their child were to go into respiratory distress, is there any recourse to seek emergency services? Is there only recourse for emergency services on a regular basis to manage their child's asthma? Will their claims be denied because of repeated visits to the emergency room? Or will their child face a waiting period or a benefit exclusion rider like those that exist in the Tennessee plans because the child was diagnosed with asthma prior to their family applying for coverage? These plans expose enrollees to significant health and harmful risks inherent in substandard coverage without any consumer protections because it lacks any enforcement and oversight by the Department of Insurance. Farm Bureau plans need to cover all essential health benefits and be regulated by the Department of Insurance. And guess what? They're actually already doing it. Did you know that if you visit alphanethealth.net now, you can pay $36 to become a member, whether you're a farmer or not, and you can purchase an Affordable Care Act plan, compliant plan, for yourself or your family member. These are plans that meet all of the federal requirements and are offered in actually 4 tiers of plans. Their website boldly promotes that they are ACA compliant and have been offering these plans for over 10 years. Farmers have unique health needs, including increased prevalence of respiratory diseases like non-allergic asthma and both chronic and acute bronchitis. Comprehensive coverage is vital to ensure that people with lung disease and any other chronic disease have access to medications, treatment, and specialists they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. Clerk will call the next proponent.
Steve Stroud.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Steve Stroud. I'm a third-generation poultry and hay farmer from Pike County, and my family is a prime example of why we need this legislation passed. My wife Valerie taught 10 years in the public school, and because of personal reasons, we decided to move to a small Christian private school. And it's been a blessing for her as well as our 14-year-old daughter, Abigail. However, with this move, we're no longer eligible for PHIP coverage. So we went to the healthcare marketplace and learned that the same insurance coverage we were paying $300 a month for was now going to cost $2,500 a month or $30,000 annually. Now, $30,000 a year on my farm could possibly hire another employee or another piece of machinery, or update worn out equipment in my poultry houses. Now to put this in perspective, most farm equipment has doubled and in some cases tripled over the last 4 to 5 years. A new hay mower that I'm in desperate need of has gone up over $20,000 in the last 5 years. The lifespan on most of the equipment we use on our hay operation is only about 4 to 5 years. As in the case of most farm equipment. It's a shame, but it's the truth that farmers are price takers and not price makers. We can't afford the increased cost and inputs as other industries can. I hope all of you are aware of the current crisis that farmers are facing in the state. Commodity prices are similar to what they were before I was born, and I'm 52 years old. Input costs are at record highs, and that, my friend, is a recipe for disaster. In closing, I would like to say that in my mind, there are 3 great occupations that are the backbone of this great country we live in. First and foremost are the men and women in our military. Without a strong military, we don't get to enjoy our freedom. Second is our teachers. Without our teachers and educators, we can't enrich the lives of our children to move into the workforce and move our country forward. And lastly is our hard-working farm families who feed and clothe our country and the world. The first 2 I mentioned have probably the best health care coverage that anyone can have at little to no cost, while farmers are stuck paying outrageous premiums for the same cases of mediocre health care coverage. We need better options, and I urge you to support this legislation for our farm families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud. Clerk will call the next opponent.
Jane Addams.
Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jane Addams, and I serve as the Government Relations Director for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network here in Alabama. While we appreciate the intent behind HB 477 to expand health coverage through Farm Bureau health plans, we are concerned about many aspects of this legislation. However, I want to focus my testimony on the lack of oversight and enforcement authority from the Alabama Department of Insurance in this legislation. As written, this bill fails to provide essential consumer protections and leave Alabamians vulnerable to significant harm. When a person is battling a serious illness like cancer, The stakes couldn't be higher. Timely access to care, reliable coverage, and a clear path to appeal denials are not luxuries, they are lifelines. And that is why DOI oversight matters. Without meaningful oversight, we risk creating situations where patients could be left without help when their claims are denied. Consider these potential scenarios that could occur if these plans operate without DOI enforcement. A woman undergoing chemotherapy for breast cancer could be denied coverage for her treatment by her Alpha Health plan because of her medical history. Under this legislation, if she is denied, she must first turn to United Health, who then sends her to an ombudsman who is paid for by Alpha Health, who then coordinates with the Department of Insurance. Who knows how long that process will take, as there is no requirement in the bill that appeals of denied claims be resolved in a timely fashion. She must navigate this bureaucracy with no neutral arbitrator, no recourse, enforcement through DOI, and should be left fighting both her illness and her insurer. A farmer living in rural Alabama might purchase a plan thinking he is covered for cancer based on public promotion of these products by the bill advocates. If he's screened and received a cancer diagnosis and tries to get treatment, his claims could be denied due to exemptions buried deep in the fine print of his contract that exclude cancer treatment based on previous screening results. Exemptions that DOI would have no authority to challenge. We are asking for basic protections. If a plan denies a claim, the Department of Insurance must have the authority to step in and help that consumer. Otherwise, the burden of challenging denied claims falls entirely on patients, who are often at their most vulnerable. Every other Alabamian with insurance, even car insurance, has the right to appeal to the Department of Insurance. Alpha Health consumers will not. DOI oversight isn't just about regulation, it's about accountability. It ensures that Alabamians have somewhere to turn when things go wrong. Without it, these plans could operate in a gray area, leaving patients unprotected and without recourse. For these reasons, we respectfully urge the committee to oppose this bill. The risk to consumers is too great without robust and enforceable protections. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. All right, clerk will call the next opponent.
Emmanuel Bankston.
Thank y'all for having me here. I'm Emmanuel Bankston. I'm from Henry County. I farm there, beef cattle. And I'm from rural Georgia originally. I lived in northeast Georgia. My grandfather and a bunch of members of my family had farms, and that's what they did for a living. It was quite a prosperous little area. And 6 years ago, I got the opportunity to move to Headland, Alabama, and start farming and expand my operation. And I have a wonderful opportunity to serve as a state young farmer on the State Young Farmers Committee as vice chair for Alpha. And I get to meet farmers from all over this state. And I get also meet farmers and network with growers from all over this country. And I can tell you about the challenges that we have in agriculture, from markets to weather and all the other issues that's just part of the business. But one of the biggest burdens that young farm families have is health insurance. Like the representative just talked about, you're paying almost 2 house mortgages for health insurance if you're a farm family and you're out there trying to make a living. In a lot of cases, someone on that farm, a husband or wife, has to go find employment somewhere else just to supplement for that health care. And so if we have the opportunity to reduce that healthcare cost by 20, 30, 40, 50%, then we've done something positive for the industry. And I talk about where I grew up at and the people that I learned about agriculture and things like that from, well, they're not there anymore. All those farms are gone. The next generation did not come back because of all the challenges and the risks that you have to take farming. And so I get the opportunity to live in a state that's very pro-farm, that has good people that enjoy and like our industry. And of course, we all eat, we all wear clothes. And so I just want to say, if we got the opportunity to have an affordable health care plan, an option, then I would appreciate your support. So thank y'all for having me here.
Thank you. I just got to know something. Can you sing?
I can. I'll wait till after.
Okay. All All right, the clerk will call the last opponent.
Ted Haas.
Good morning, I cannot sing. So, I don't mean to spoil the suspense here, but I know this legislature is almost certain to approve and create this very unique state health plan, which anybody who you talk to, if they're being honest, including the Department of Insurance, is going to tell you is health insurance. That's what we're talking about here. And you're going to create this plan for just one company and one company alone to sell. And despite the fact that Alpha is going to be selling their own branded health insurance, they're not really going to have a whole lot to do with how it is administered. It's really going to be run, and they've said this openly, it's going to be run out of Tennessee by the Tennessee Farm Bureau using United Health Insurance as the third-party administrator. So, unfortunately, this health insurance, again, that's what this is not going to have to follow any of the rules or the laws that every other health insurance has to follow, either under the state or the federal law. You all have seen this, and Mr. Faulkner referenced it in his testimony. This is a list of the things that were put in the bill that Alpha is saying they're required to do. But what they leave out is that there's no entity that can actually make them do any of these things. This is purely an advisory set of rules. Nobody can tell them they must comply with them. Now, what they will also have been saying, and this gets a little frustrating, is that this is a self-funded health plan. This is not a self-funded health plan. Self-funded health plans are created by employers for their employees. And they take a combination of contributions from the employer and the employee, and they put it into a fund and pay the claims. There's no one other than the people paying premiums in this plan who will make contributions from which claims will be paid. There's no employer involved in this. Alpha's not putting their money into this self-funded plan, nor is the Tennessee Farm Bureau. The money is going to come purely from the consumers, and that's it. And real self-funded plans are governed by federal law and have oversight from not one but two federal agencies, the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Labor. That's not present in either of these in this case. A lawsuit filed by a member of an employer-sponsored plan is governed under ERISA, and the consumer is entitled to attorney's fees. That is not present here. There is no meaningful recourse for a consumer contained in this legislation. We're not talking about opposing this plan. What we're talking about is meaningful consumer protection.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. All right, Senator Smithman, I'm sorry I had to hold you hostage, but did you have a question now for Representative Faulkner?
I thought we were tighter than that.
You know I love you. Just had to hold you hostage just for a little while. I want to see your face.
But it's that choking down a little. Now, having said that, I'll reduce, I guess, to a short period of time with my concerns. I think that it has been spoken enough in here. Is that there's got to be more consumer protection than that. It's not about the plan. It's not about not allowing it not to. But in the let me back out and say this to you. I've been blessed and had the opportunity to work in corporate. Okay, I just want to say that. And the number one priority for any corporation, they just break it down, any, not just have any, is to make money. The profit. That's what the business is there for. The priority is not the consumer. The priority is to make money. Consumer may be number two, but the number one thing is to make money. And and every time it comes back to me, when I think about those things, not Alpha, but just I think about that concept, I go back to the Pinto car. How many of y'all remember the Pinto car? That's right. They found out in the trial that GM, Ford, whoever it was, just said it's going to be, I'm going to pick a number. They said it's going to be 1,000 folks going to get killed. And we're allowing for that. We got policies over here or whatever it is. I'm concerned about those consumers in this situation here, where they don't have a recourse. I heard what, Representative said. He said that, you know, that they can take it further. That was the words that he used. And further, yes, but how is a regular citizen, and I'm listening at what these people have gotten up and said who are for it, but how, if they're struggling at their businesses now, and they have a complaint, how in the world they gonna hire somebody like me, hire a lawyer? How they gonna pay the fee for the lawyer? Okay, that means that they gotta put out extra independent money themselves if they have a redress to address that. That's a serious concern about the consumer protection. And any of this we do, including this particular situation here, I myself can't turn my back on consumers just for the sake of making money. I can't, you know, because I'm sitting in this room right now. Everybody's got somebody represented in here, sitting right out there, but the consumer, as a group. The consumer they can't pay for lobbyists. They can't, you know, if we don't stand up for the consumer need, there's nobody that's gonna do it. Well, I ain't saying what people feel right or wrong, but that's the fact. And that's why that's got to be corrected as we move forward. Otherwise, we're gonna have some serious concern that what's gonna take place with consumers. The second thing is this, and I heard it mentioned, we mentioned in a lot of different issues, and this is one of them. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. Okay? I can't speak for anybody in here. But Tennessee don't decide what I think is good or not good. They don't make the decision for me. I represent Alabama. I don't represent Tennessee. If Tennessee don't allow that consumers not to be protected at that level, then that's Tennessee. But I can't jump on board because you can show me over here that another state was what I call not being responsible enough for those consumers. That it's all right for me to not be responsible for the consumers. So that is a very serious problem for me, that we don't have protection for the consumers, and it's a very serious concern in this approach as we go forward, because they can get the same discount that they want. These farmers can get everything they want, okay, in this bill, and we can have consumer protection. Everybody understand what I'm saying? If we can get, they can do, I'm not against nothing they trying to get done. I'm saying in addition to that, we gotta make sure that we have good consumer protection. And so I want to express that. I had a few other thoughts that I couldn't keep together at this point, just simply because I was prolonged, you know, and you asking me to sit up here and listen and then focus on what I'm trying to say and get ready for the next meeting. You know, so it's kind of difficult to do that if you're gonna really listen at what people are saying. And I tried to listen at these people, what they were saying, and I sympathize and support their positions, but it doesn't have to be either or. You know, that's my whole point. It doesn't have to be, well, if you support them, the consumer can't be protected. Well, if you support the consumer, then you are not doing what they want to do. No, it's not an either or. Those are two divisions of issues. The issue is to get them where they can afford to have insurance under the circumstances they told us, and the issue is to make sure the consumer, because remember, this plan is for farmers and non-farmers. It's just like we in junior college. You got the educational side, you got the vocational side. And we have to balance that in what we do. Everything ain't workforce development. People want degrees, so they gonna go to the academic side. And we've had to kind of make sure we can run over there just for workforce development and ignore that. That's the same thing in this situation. For the sake of wanting to run and go help them, we can't turn our backs over here on the consumers at the same time. So I would hope that as we go forward, that issue is addressed and addressed in a manner, not in this manner that I'm hearing, you know, from my colleagues. And you said that no, you could do something. No, I'm gonna give you one last example. The same thing I see applied. If you go, the same thing we were talking about. I know this is a different issue, but I'm giving a parallel. We're talking about the gambling issue, okay? Same thing applies. You on those reservations, something happened to you, you're not governed by state law. You go by a group of council people decide if they feel sorry for you, and you wanna do that, and I know someone who had a situation like that. That's why I discovered it. They came to me and I said, wait a minute, here's what they said, no, the council decide whether you get redressed or not. You have no other recourse. That's the same situation here. They just tell it like it is. You don't have protection in that tune. They're just at the mercy of whether somebody feels sorry for them or not. If not, then they up the creek, and that's not right either. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Miller. Senator Williams, you have a question?
Yes, can I talk to Steve again? Yes. If you get a good deal on hay cutter, let me know. I gotta have one too. My gearbox left. Pretty much it's shot. Yeah. Rebuilt it so many times. How does your current premiums compare to your other expenses on the farm?
Well, for instance, on my gas bills for my poultry houses, it ranges anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a year, depending on, in the poultry industry, during the winter time, it all matters on how you hit it during, like say this week it may be 70 degrees, next week it may be 20 degrees, and if you get busy during that week when it's 20 degrees, it's just gonna cost you some money on gas. Then you have utilities as well, electric bills they're outrageous. Everything on our farm has gotten outrageous, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, the cost is double and sometimes triple.
I'm a fourth generation farmer. My son's a fifth and my grandson's a sixth. And he's thinking about getting out of it totally, my grandson, because he just can't afford to farm no more.
Well, it's tough out here. It really is.
But thanks for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, this meeting,
Just a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been over here, with anxiety because I do need to get to general fund, but I just the statement, last year, had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions for Tennessee last year. And some on the line of what Senator Smithman said, and I was a flat out no last year. I've heard from my constituents, Nelson Farmers here, and others, and I'm getting there, and that's a part of the process here. That's why sometimes it is delayed for those folks that are in the room. But I do also have that concern just to make sure that there is some level of consumer protection. I was hoping that the entities would have been able to get together by now and come up with a compromise version of the bill. We all could sing Kumbaya and everybody could be happy this year. And so I am aware of an amendment that does add that consumer protection. I would love for us to talk about that. I know if there is something that helps folks, and because I'm a justice person, that's just who I am. And I just want to make sure that, my constituents from the Nelson Farm and all of the other farmers that are in here, that if something does arise, that there is some kind of a way or some level of recourse for you all that does not require you to hire an attorney and get some additional expense, which was already stated. So again, I'm almost there. I just hope that we can get there together so that everybody can have the opportunity to have insurance, but also have those protections. So, Mr. Chair, with that's probably the least amount of time you've heard me speak on the issue ever. But again, I hope we get there. Look, I'm very self-aware, so I make fun of my own self. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. All right, committee members, thank you for coming. Mr. Bankston, if you want to come back next week and open us up with a song, y'all please get with us, Representative Faulkner. Oh, we got one more question.
So on the consumer protection side, we keep mentioning consumer protection. What is it that we're going to try to give to them? I'll ask Mr. Hosp if he would.
So what we've circulated to a lot of y'all is a provision that would give the Department of Insurance oversight solely over Section 7 of the bill. Section 7 deals with consumer complaints, so it would not have broad enforcement authority over everything, though that green list that you've gotten, not everything, just a consumer complaint. The department would have authority over those issues and those issues alone.
Okay. I asked that question because when you file a consumer protection complaint, and I've done this before, but on the PNC side, what does the Department of Insurance do?
I can only speak from our experience, and that is they take down the complaint and they forward it to the insurance company, and then you forward a response to them, and then depending on how that response hits, they'll resolve it or they'll tell you what they want you to do.
Okay, and I say that because the ones I've dealt with, Department of Insurance generally goes back, and as long as they abided by the contract, they just tell them, hey, we've asked, there's no fault, so I'm sorry, and that's it.
Well, I agree, and for that reason, I think providing that oversight would be little to no cost to the health plan, particularly given the number of complaints that it was said earlier. So I hear what you're saying, but if there is that breach, then even if it's 250 people a year or 100 people or 50 people a year who've had a claim denied, I'm not sure I understand the reticence behind having the department have the ability to step in on behalf of that consumer.
And I see that. I guess what I'm saying is it's just one of those things where I feel like as long as they abide by their contract, and this is going to be free market, so they're not going to be forced to go one way or the other. You know, and I feel like if they do a bad job, then they'll lose customers, you know, and eventually the plan will dissolve. But as long as they do what they say they're going to do and live up to the contract, I feel like, you know, it'll speak for itself. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, you've made the argument then. So if that is then indeed the case, Senator, then why not have the oversight? Just, you know.
I don't see where it really helps this plan, because if they're not going to have to cover something because it's contractually not covered, then the Department of Insurance is just going to say we're sorry. I mean, I don't think we're giving consumers the protection that we feel like we're going to give them, because the Department of Insurance is going to step in and force them to cover something that's not covered.
I just beg to differ on that argument. If again, if it's as simplistic as what you just mentioned, then why not have the oversight? I mean, again, if we're talking about votes in the legislature, because we do have to get there, having that in there is going to get my yes vote. So, you know, if it's not going to be harmful or not to the industry itself, then why not have the additional oversight to where these folks have that additional layer of protection? Why not? And we can talk further about it.
Thank you, members. You are adjourned.